So good morning to everyone. I hope we have completed this yesterday in our lecture, that is JSTL, and we started with your function tag. Okay, so we completed our first tag and then we had started with the function tag and we completed this two uppercase function. Now we are going to start with the another one that is again comes under your function tag, that is JSTL FN starts with function. Okay, so if you remember, we had the very first type of tag that was your core tag. Okay, and if you don't remember, we learned that it is going to start with an @ sign, which is going to indicate that we are going to use the directives, and which type of directive we are making use of, that is tag lib directive. Okay, and it is having two attributes, that is one is URI and one is prefix. So in URI you're going to pass the defined URL for the core tag, and what is the defined one, that is java.sun.com jsp/jstl/core. Okay, rest of the things are going to remain same for all the rest tags. The only thing is going to change is the last word. So if I'm making use of core tags, so I'm going to write core. If I'm making use of function tags, I'm going to write functions. Okay, similarly rest three tag which we are going to learn today, we're going to write similarly. Now other thing which was mandatory to write it over here in this syntax, that was prefix. So for core tag we are going to write prefix equals to C, that is also defined one, you cannot change it. For function tag, what we are going to write, prefix fn. Okay, now after that we are making use of starts with function. So what we are going to do first, we are going to try the set tag what we have used yesterday also. Okay, so set tag is going to have two attributes, that is where and value. So what where means, it is an attribute which is going to help me to create a variable. So where equals to message, so message is going to be your variable. Okay, and what value we are going to pass this variable called as msg, the value which we have written it over here. Okay, so the example of JSTL function starts with. Okay, so this is a value, this is a string value which we are writing, and we are putting into the variable called as msg, which has been created by making use of the keyword, or you can say the attribute of set tag, that is where. Fine. Now the main thing which we are going to use, that is what starts with function. So what we are going to write now, it is just a statement. It's completely your choice whether you want to write it or not. Just even you will pass the expression language the way it is written over here, it is also okay. Okay, to make the expression language like available, or we can say if you want to write an expression language, how we are going to identify that, whenever we are going to start with this dollar symbol, it says that we are writing the expression language. Okay, so what was the syntax for writing the expression language? With a dollar sign and in the curly bracket you can write the expression. Now in the bracket, curly bracket, what we are writing, we are writing the function which we want to use it. So what you are going to write over here, what is the syntax of writing any tag, or you can say any function in your JSP? You're going to write the prefix first. Okay, that is what fn. So if you can see over here, if I'm writing c:set, what does it mean? So set tag, which comes under your core tag, that I'm using it. Why we are making use of this set tag? Why we cannot just go with the function tag? Because your core tag is meant for having the variable support, like variable declaration. Okay, it is going to hold the value of the variables also, it can have the flow control also. So many things the core tag is defined for. So one thing was your variable declaration, so we wanted to declare a variable, that's why we have made use of a set tag. Okay, now once we have done that, because we want some place where we can store some string value, and that string value we can work with the function called as starts with. Okay, now what we are making use of now, the function tag called as starts with. So how it is going to start now, fn colon start with. Okay, instead of writing c, which is a prefix of core tag, now we are going to make use of fn, which is a prefix of your function tag. Okay, so whenever you're going to make use of function called as starts with, it should be understood to your JSP engine that where it is coming from. Okay, then we'll say it is from the fn, so it will understand, okay, this fn is something which is called as function. Okay, and this function where it is defined somewhere in your taglib directive. Fine. Now inside the function, what we are doing it, we are passing that variable. What variable we have created previously, that was your MSG, okay, which is holding some value. Fine. So we just call the first parameter as what? The variable what we have declared using a set tag. Fine. And we are just checking why we are going to make use of this function. We are just going to check what sentence, whatever sentence we are passing, whatever string value we are passing, is it starting with the value which I'm going to give you as a parameter. So if I'm having a variable called as MSG, I'm saying that please check with this variable whether the value which is been there in this particular variable, is it starting with the word called as the. Okay, that means it is going to give you an answer in the boolean form, either it is true or false. Okay, so let's see the sentence what we have written, what value we have placed in our variable called as MSG. Is it starting from the word called as the? Yes, it is starting. So what output you should get? True. Fine. If I'm going to have the next one, say for example, again I'm writing an expression language over here starting with dollar sign. What I'm saying, fn colon starts with. Okay, so fn means your function starts with, fn means your functions, that is your functions of this tag lib directive what we have defined it, because we are going to identify this function tag by making use of prefix called as fn. And we have a starts with function where we are going to have two parameters again, the variable which we have created where my values are stored, the string values are stored, and I'm just checking that example word, is it the starting value or the starting word. So I'm just saying please check whether the value called as example is the starting word or not in the given string value. So is it the starting value? It is not a starting value, it is a second word. Starting value, starting word was the. So you're going to get true for your first sentence, for your first statement what you have written over here, the function what you have created. And the second one you're going to get what? You're going to get false. Fine. So I hope you have understood this. This starts with function. So if you can see the output over here, is it the string is going to start with the, so it is giving you the answer as true, and the next one is what? False. Okay. Now next one, again in the function tag we have what? Substring. Okay, so how it is going to come? Fn colon substring. What we want to find it out, basically we have a string value. Okay, we have a whole sentence, and out of that sentence we just wanted to find out a part of that string values. Okay, so if I can just tell you again what type of directive we are making use of, that is tag lib directive. We have a URI as an attribute where we need to pass an URL of a specific uh, tag what we are going to use. So in this program also we are going to make use of two tags, that is core tag and function tag. Okay, and how you're going to make your JSP engine identify that you are making use of core and function? By making the use of prefixes, that is for core it is C and for function it is FN. Fine. Now, what we are going to do, we are going to have again a variable. So whenever we are going to create a variable, so which tag is responsible to do that? Core tag. Okay. So what tag we are going to use out of the core tag? Core is your main tag. Okay. So if you remember yesterday, we have seen those 5 types of tags. That is your core, functions. Okay. Then we have XML also, we have formatting tag also, and we have a SQL tag also. Okay, and I told you out of each main tag we are going to have many sub tags which are ready-made tags. We are just going to see how we are going to implement it. Okay, so we have completed I think 4 to 5 sub tags, ready-made tags from the core tag, and we are now learning about the function tag. Okay, and inside the function tag also we have number of available functions which we have used it, we have seen in the last lecture also, and today also we are going to see this. Okay, now this the set tag is coming from where? The core tag. How it is going to be identified? Because you made use of C, that is a prefix of your core. So you are saying that from core tag, I want to make use of set tag. Okay. What I'm doing over here is I'm just going to create a variable name is what? String. You can give any name over here. Okay, the attribute will remain same, where and value, but what you're going to make change, you can either change the variable name, okay, and you can make the changes in the value which you're going to put it into the variable. Fine. Now what is the variable name I have given over here? String. Fine. And what value we are trying to store into this variable? The value is, this is the first string. Okay. Now what function you are going to make use of? That is substring. Fine. So how we are going to start with? We are going to write with the dollar sign first, which will indicate to your JSP engine that it is a expression language. Okay, and inside the curly bracket we'll write an expression. Okay, what expression we are writing? We are making use of fn colon substring, so we are going to write that first, fn colon substring. And in the bracket we are going to have some parameters. What parameters we are going to pass? First of all, we have to call the variable which is holding some value. Okay, what is the variable name? String. Okay, now this 5 comma 17, that is your beginning value and that is your ending value. So you can just see here, if I'll just go back to the string, a variable which I have created just above, and then I'm having some value which is present inside this variable. So I'm saying that please find the substring from the variable called as string, which might have some value, and there should be like the substring which is like a part of this string. Yesterday I gave you an example. So if I'll say elephant, and if I just wanted to have a substring which can consist of pha, okay, so accordingly I have to give the starting and the ending value over here. So we'll just see what we have said, 5. So we'll just start with the index value. It is not a position value, it is an index value. Okay, so what we are saying starts with 5. Now this t is in your 0th place. 1 2 3 space is what? 4. And then next string value is what? 5. So I is in 5th place, but you are not going to take a character, but you're going to take a whole word. Okay, so when I'm saying that I is in 5th place, what is in associated word? That is your is. Okay, so it is going to start from is. What I'm saying, where it is going to end? 17th. Wherever 17th word is going to find that found, then that word is going to be taken. Whole word is going to be taken. Okay, so if at all I is in 5th place, we are going to consider the whole word, that is what is. Fine. So now if this is in 5th place, this is in 6th place, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, this is in 12th place, F, 13th, 14th and 15th. So S is in 15th place, T is in 16th place, and space is what? Your 17th place. So what we are going to do? We are going to consider the whole first word. So what is going to be printed is the first. So is the word first is your substring. Okay. This whole is your string value. This whole is your whole sentence. And out of this whole sentence, we are just trying to find out some sub parts. Okay. And we have mentioned the number also, the index value, from where it is going to end until what it is going to find. Okay, just you have to remember, whenever you're going to make use of this 5 and 17 kind of numeric values to find out your index value, so what we are going to do, instead of making use of single character, we are going to make use of the whole word, because we want a string, substring, it's not a character. Okay, so is the first is going to be your substring value. Fine. Now this is going to be your output. Fine. Now, next tag in your function tag is what? Fn colon substring after. Okay, now students, as I told you yesterday also, that it is completely your choice. In the question paper, it is not going to be specific that you are going, that it has been asked to you, please explain JSTL substring after function, and you have to write the theory, okay, for 5 marks. It is not going to happen. It is going to ask you explain function tag. Okay, so you have to explain what is function tag, and you have to give the syntax. You have to write a program of 2 to 3 function tag. Okay, so we have learned so many. I think in function tag we have almost learned about 8 to 9 of tags. So it is completely your choice to write any 2 or 3 tags which you are comfortable with. Okay, now next is what? Your fn colon substring after function. So again we are going to make use of the same thing with the first 2 line. That is, we are going to make the JSP engine understand that we are going to use the directive, that is at the rate. We have tag lib directive which we are using. Then we have 2 attributes, that is URI and prefix, where we are passing the URL for the core tag and for the functions. And we are going to make a JSP to understand that how we are going, like why, what prefix we are going to pass to make understand that we are making use of core and function. For core we have a prefix called as C, and for function we have a prefix called as Fn. Fine. Now again, if I wanted to find out, or if I just wanted to deal with the string value, so I need one variable where I can pass a value, a string value. So for that need, I have to use a set tag which is responsible to do that. Okay, so set tag comes from your core tag. So how we are going to hint that C colon set. Okay, and what you're going to use the attribute called as var and value. Again, the var means what? For having the variable, creating a variable. So what is the variable name you have given? String. Fine. And what value you are passing? Nakul Jain. Now why we are using this fn colon substring after? I think till here everything is same what we have learned till date. Okay, so it is similar. The only change is going to be in the terms of functions what we are using. Okay, what is the function name? Substring after. So how we are going to start with? We are going to make use of expression language. So it is going to start with $sign, and in the curly bracket what we are going to write? Fn colon substring after the function name. We are passing the parameter. The very first parameter will be what? The variable which we have created. We have to call because we want to deal with the value which is stored in that specific variable. So we have called the variable, that is what? Variable name as string. And what I'm saying that I'm passing a value called as nakul. So I just wanted to find out the value which is being holded by a variable. Okay, so I just wanted to find after one word which I'm going to define as a parameter, what is the next word? Okay, what is the next substring value after the value which I'm defining it over here? So if I'm defining it over here as Nakul, so what is the next substring value in the whole sentence? So Nakul Jain is like, for me right now it's a whole sentence. It's a sentence where I'm having two part, that is one is Nakul and one is Jain. Nakul is a substring of Nakul Jain, and even Jain is a substring of your Nakul Jain. Okay, so I'm saying that please find out the word or a string value or a substring which is going to come after the word called as Nakul. So what is the next word you have? Jain. Or I can do what? I can have another function that is substring before. Okay. So substring before, if I'm writing Jain instead of Nakul, so what is the value you're going to get? Nakul. Fine. So this is how you're going to work with substring after and before. So here we end with the function tag. So we have completed our core and function tag. Now what we are going to do, we are going to start with the JSTL formatting tags. So just asking you, if you have any questions, students, you can put it in the chat box. Okay, we can solve in the last 10 minutes. Okay, and today we have two lectures. So I'm going to give you the break also in between, similarly the way you're going to have your lectures. Okay, so we are going to do that also. And okay, so I'm just going to start with this tag first, that is JSTL formatting tag. The formatting tags are something which is going to provide a support for message formatting. It is going to provide the option where I can format the date and time. Okay, so the URL for the formatting tag is what? http colon java dot sun.com JSP JSTL, and what is the name I'm going to attach to this formatting tag? FMT. And even the prefix is same. What prefix you are going to make use? That is FMT. Okay, now the syntax for making use this JSTL formatting library in your JSP, how you're going to do that? You're going to start with @ sign, which will hint that it is a directive, and which type of directive you are using, that is taglib directive, and what attributes you have? URI and prefix. Okay, so in URI we are going to pass the URL, that is java.sun.com JSP JSTL and FMT. Fine, and we have a prefix also similar, that is what? FMT. Fine, so whenever you're going to see the FMT, it should be understood that you are making use of formatting tags. Now we have number of formatting tags available. As I told you, it is generally going to work with the time and the date, formatting the date and the time. Okay, formatting the messages. So here you can say number of formatting tags are available. We'll see few of them with an example. So I have time zone, I have a format number. That means we can use any format that will give the specific format or a precision to the number. Or we can have a time zone, we can set our own time zone. It can be in the GMT form, it can be in the IST form. Okay, then we can have the date, format date. We can set the pattern and the style of the date and the time. Okay, so this is how you're going to work with the formatting tag. So we'll see a few examples. So we'll start with the first one, that is what your set time zone, FMT colon set time zone tag. Okay, so here also the core tag is a very basic tag because we need to have a variable declarations and we need to use this. So if you'll see in the previous tag, also in the function tag, we have done the make use of the core and the function together. Here what we are going to do, we are going to make use of core and uh, formatting tag. Okay, so we have written the URL of both the tag. We indicated that we are going to use of directive with attributes URI and prefix. Okay, for core it is C, it is formatting, that is FMT. Fine. This is a basic HTML code. I don't think so I have to make you understand what HTML tag and head tag, what is a title tag. Okay, we'll just directly go to the body tag where the actual logic has been written. Fine. Now we need a variable. So what tag we are using, that is set tag, which comes from your core tag, that is indicated with the help of your prefix called as C. Fine. Now what variable name we have given? Date. And what value we are passing? So we are trying to fetch the date by making use of a package. If you just remember, students, okay, so this equals to sign means what? An expression. Okay, expression tag. So I'll just give you a revision. Okay, so we had one chapter when where we have learned about the elements, JSP elements. So very first type of element was a scripting element, directive element. Okay, and then third one was an action element. Okay, the first one, that is your action element, had four subtypes. One is your scriptlet code, scriptlet tag, then we had an expression tag, we have a declaration tag, and there was one more comment tag. Okay, in the scriptlet tag, as I told you, it is going to start with a percent sign, as it is all like everywhere it is going to start with a similar manner. Okay, the only difference between your scriptlet and the expression tag is, in scriptlet you are going to write an expression, Java expression. So for example, you want to print anything, so you'll write out.println. Okay, but in expression tag you can replace that out.print statement by making use of equals to. Okay, so that equals to is actually meant for what? Expression tag. Fine. So we are using which type of tag over here? Expression tag. We are not writing out.print, we are just using equals to, which is going to be the same, or we can say the same meaning of using the scriptlet without equals and making use of the out.print, or else you can go with the equals to sign, that is like considered as your expression tag. Okay, now what we are trying to find out, we are trying to find the current date, and for that need, what you're going to do, you're going to have a package, that is java.util. We have a class called as date, and when we try to invoke the constructor of that class, it is going to give me the current date and time. Okay, and whatever current date and time is going to come from here, it is going to get stored into the variable called as date. Okay, now what I want, I am just going to have in the bold, it is going to be printed. Okay, this is a static statement, nothing logic is there behind this. What is going to be printed? Date and time in Indian standard time zone. So it is going to be printed in bold because we had made use of this B tag, that is stands for the bold. Okay, and we are making use of actual tag, what we are learning, that is formatting tag. What is the uh, tag name? That is format date. We are going to use set time zone, which is we are learning right now. Okay, so when we talk about this tag format date, okay, what is going to happen? We are just having an attribute called as what? Value. So set tag is having how much attribute? Var and value. Similarly, we have one tag inside your formatting tag, that is what? Your format date. Okay, which is having attribute called as value, which is having a type attribute, which is having time style attribute, and date style attribute. Okay, now in the value, what we are trying to do, we are calling the variable what is been holding the current date and time. Okay, what is this variable name? Date. Okay, can you see this? So if I am starting with dollars, and that means what? I am making use of the expression language, and I'm calling the variable which I have created above. What is the variable name? Date. So it is written over here, and this date variable is going to hold the value, that is current system date and time. So that is been placed inside this variable, and this variable is been called over here. Okay, that means what is going to happen? This date and value is going to be, date and time is going to be printed. In which format I have to print the date, that also we have to make the GSP understand. Okay, now out of this statement what we have written over here, it is going to give me the current date and time, the current system date and time. I always tell you students, whatever date and time your system is having, okay, maybe right now it is 9:30, but in your system if it is 11 o'clock and if it is 2013, so that is going to be your current date and time. Okay, so if you feel that that is an error, it is not going to give you a proper output, no, it is giving you proper output because it is just fetching the value what is there in your system. Okay, so here what we have said, we are just trying to fetch the current system date and time placed in this variable, called this variable inside your tag. The tag name is what? Format date. That means you are going to format the date structure. That means how you want, that means you are doing the beautification, what is going to be printed. Okay, what is going to be printed? The current date and time. Now once I'm calling this variable which is holding some value which is consisting of current date and time, I have to decide using one attribute whether I want only time or I want only date or I want both to be printed. Okay, so that means I can print the time, even I can print the date, even I can print both the values. Okay, so what I have written in the type attribute, both, so it is going to print both date and time. Now what is a time style? That means long, so it is going to have in minutes, seconds, milliseconds. Okay, if I'm going to make it medium, if I'm going to make it short, which I'm going to teach you, okay, in the further slides, that is big program we have. So we are going to learn the different formats. Okay, so time style, how you want, maybe it is long, maybe it is medium. So sometimes it can be only the printing of hours. Okay, it can be printing the hours and minutes, hours, minutes and seconds. So like that way you can decide the time style. Even you can decide the date style, and we have written what? Log. So here I can just show you once the output, so we can see over here. So first, date and time in India standard time zone, that is written in bold, what we have like designed. And what we have said, we want the both time and date. So what is the date we have here, the current date and time? So August 12, 2016. So when you're going to write like this, it has been considered as a long date. Okay, so August 12, 2016 has been considered in this format. If I'm going to print, it is considered as what? A long format of date. And what we are saying, long format of time also. So it is 6 hours, 33 minutes, 48 seconds. Okay, so this is how you're going to get one output. Now we'll come back. Now what we are saying, set time zone, that is this one, what function tag we are using it. Now what value we are passing? GMT 10. Okay, this is the value which we have here, that is GMT 10. Now what we are going to do, again a print statement, that is date and time in GMT 10 zone. So it is going to be in the bold. Now the next one is what? The format date. Okay, so I'm just writing again the same what we can say, the tag what we have used. So because we want to use it, because it is having multiple of attributes which is going to format my date and time style. Okay, so I'm again going to use what? Format date, where you're going to understand that it is having the format which is going to be converted in GMT 10. Okay, so what you have defined it over here. So when you're going to make use this set time zone with an attribute called as value, and whatever value you're going to define it over here. So not necessary it is only GMT 10 is going to take, it is going to can also going to take the IST. If you define IST over here, so your date and time is going to be coming in the form of IST. Okay, right now what we are doing, we are just defining in which format we want the time zone. It is in GMT 10. Okay, now again we are saying that format date, so it is having an attribute called as value, which is going to call a variable called as what? A date, what we have defined it over here, which is fetching the current date and time. It is required. So whenever it is going to fetch the data which is your current date and time, either it is going to be printed in IST form or it is going to be printed in GMT 10 format. Okay, but for that need you at least require date and time to convert that. Okay, so first we have printed the IST as it is. If you're not defining which format you want, so it is going to print in the Indian Standard Time. Okay, and then if you want to make the changes, if you want to set your time zone, so what we are doing, we are making the use of GMT 10 and we are saying in the attribute called as value, so that your time set time zone tag is going to understand that in which form you want it. Okay, and this format has to be applied to which variable? The variable which is holding some date and time. That is what date variable. Okay, and type, again what you're saying, both. Time style you're saying long, then date style you're saying long. So if you'll see over here again, so what is going to happen, it is going to be changed. Okay, you can see the both the output, it is changed one. Fine. So this is how you're going to make use of set time zone and format date. So in one program only we had made use of format date and time zone. Next one is what your format date. We'll just see like if you can have the different types of format. I'll first show you the output and then we'll come back to the program. Okay, so see different formats of the dates we can see. The first one is what, only time. Okay, so that is 4 hours 26 minutes 10 seconds. We can have the only date, that is August 13 2016. We can have both formatted date and time, so we can have like this, formatted date and time in short style. Okay, so this was a long style of your date, we can have in the short style. We can have it in the medium style where your whole August is been like written over, written something like this. Okay, and in the long style it is been like this. Okay, so this is how you're going to have the different types of formats of the date. I'll come back to the program now. So we started with the core tag. We have written the formatting tag, which is going to be represented by FMT. Okay, and this is a basic HTML code which is going to have a title as FMT colon format date. No, if you don't write, nothing is going to have like affect in your program. Okay, so it is completely optional if you want to write. What is the major part and the like what is the mandatory part you have to write from here? That is your C colon set. So again, we have defined a variable called as what, date. Okay, and what value we are trying to insert in this variable, the current system date and time. How we can do that? Java.util.date function. Okay, now the first thing what we are going to do, formatted time. So what we are trying to do, we are trying to have the time only, the first sentence which was printed in the output. What was that? The only thing what you want to print, what you are going to print is the time. Okay, out of time and date, what you're going to print, time. So when you invoke this function, date function, from this package, it is going to give you both date and time, but it is completely your choice that out of this variable you want either date, either time, or both. Okay, so what we said, what type we want time. So till now what we have done in the previous program, we have written both. Okay, so what we have written over here now, time. Now time we want from the value attribute. Okay, the value attribute we have written because we are going to call the variable from where actually the time is going to be taken. So we have the variable name as what, date. Fine. Again, next one, formatted date. So format date, what type now we want? Instead of time we just want what, date. Okay, so it is just going to print what, date. Next one, we have seen this in the previous one, that is if I'm writing type equals to both, so it is going to print both time and date. Now if I just wanted to format and just wanted to give the style, so what we are going to write, we are going to say that type should be both, that means both time and date we want. Date style should be what, short, and time style also be short. Okay, then we are going to write what, the format date, type should be both, date style should be medium, time style should be medium, and similarly you're going to write long. Okay, so I hope you have understood. Even you all like one 4 to 5 lines of code, if you write properly, then you can just have to copy and paste it. Okay, so this is the output you are going to get. Now the next type of tag, that is JSTL XML tag. I'll try to finish this XML tag and then we'll have a break and then we'll come back and we'll start with the last type of tag, that is what, JSTL SQL tag. Fine. I hope till here you have understood everything. You can put your questions in the chat box. Again, I'm saying we can solve in the last, after we complete this chapter. Okay. Now, till now, what we have learned about the core tag, we have learned about the function tag, we have seen the formatting tags. Okay, so your core tag was completely working with the variable declaration, flow controls, iterations, loopings. Okay, and then we have your function tag, the tags which is responsible to work with the string manipulation. Okay, then you have a formatting tag which is working for the date and time formats. Now we have the XML tags. So these XML tags are going to use for providing a JSP centric way for manipulating and creating the XML documents. Okay, why we are using the JSTL XML tags? When we want to deal, or when we want to manipulate, when we want to create the XML documents. Fine. So if you remember, students, we had two things when we learned the previous chapter, that can be a first or the second chapter. So where we had JSP page and JSP documents. Okay, and I told you that JSP page is going to follow the HTML standard, and your JSP document is going to follow your XML format. Okay, where that means the JSP document is going to have the standard rules and regulations of XML which needs to be followed. And we have learned the rules and regulations also of the JSP documents, okay, which has to follow. Now here, what is the URL for the XML tag? What is the defined URL you are going to have? That is java.sun.com JSP slash JSTL slash XML. And what prefix you are going to make use? X. Okay. Again, what is the syntax? You're going to start with @ which indicates it's a directive. Which type of directive you are using? Taglib directive. You have prefix called as URI and prefix. So what URL you are passing, which is a defined one, you cannot make any changes into this. Okay. And what prefix you are writing? X, which is also a defined one. Fine. Now, we have number of XML tags also. We have the out tag. So here also you are going to use the XML tag for having the like printing the value by making use of out tag. You can have the you can set the variable value. Okay, you can have the condition like if. So whatever you have learned in your core tag, that is for your JSP, for your like normal basic tags, what you are going to learn it over here, it is completely meant for the XML. Okay, so whatever you're going to write, it is meant for what? XML. So it is going to be used for the XML data. It is going to set a variable to a value which you're going to pass in the XML expressions. Okay, so this is meant for completely your XML. Fine. XML documents which you're going to deal with. So we'll see one by one the example, like the possible examples which we have. We'll see that. Now we are going to start again. So we need a core tag everywhere. So we are going to write the first statement for core. Then we are going to make use of XML tag, which is going to be understood when we are going to use an XML word, and when we are going to use the prefix called as X. So there is no problem at all if you write the prefix first and then write URI, or URI first or prefix after. So it is okay. Okay. So it's an attribute. It is completely like you can say you are allowed to do the changes in the places of writing. Fine. This is your basic HTML tags. So it's completely your choice whether you want to write it or not, where you want to define the title. Okay, some header you can give. The only major concern about this, how we are going to make use of the X colon if tag, which is a part of your XML tag. Okay, so now what we are doing, we are again using the set tag. Why we are using the set tag? Because we are going to create a variable using an attribute called as var. And what is the variable name I have given? Vegetables. So you can also think like your switch case, students over here. Okay, so if I'm saying from these vegetables, if I'm having a first case, say for example vegetable, where the name of the vegetable is what? Onion, and the price is going to be 40. So this is like all user defined, but if you're defining inside this variable, which is also working like a tag now, okay, so it is allowed. Okay, what you're going to write, this is the variable name, and this variable name is holding number of other values. The first value, what is been hold, the value that is the name of the vegetable is onion, and the price is 40. So this is being placed inside your variable. Okay, called as vegetables. Now second one, again we have inside the vegetables only, we have the another vegetable data, that is what? Potato and 30. What is the price? 30. Similarly, we have tomato and 90. So here we are going to end the main tag, that is what? Vegetables tag, which is nothing a variable what we have declared. Okay, so here in the variable we have now three datas, three name of the vegetable and three price of that vegetable. Okay, and there we end with our core tag, that is a set tag. Now what we are going to write, we are going to make use of parse. So what we are saying, uh, we are having an attribute called as XML. That means it is going to first parse, or you can say it is going to search that variable. Okay, what is the variable? We are having the value, that is what? Vegetables. So we can call inside your expression language. Fine. Then we have a next attribute called as what? Where we can have another variable called as output. Okay, We need somewhere, so that's why we are writing an output. Now, we are having the condition called as what? If condition. What we are saying, we are having an attribute. So students, don't get confused in between the attributes. Attributes are there in every tag. Okay, so you just have to understand, as I told you, if you want to be very much clear that which tag is having which attributes, please write it in your notebook. Then only it is going to be easy for you. Okay, because there are n number of attributes, so we have to learn every attributes whenever it is going to come. Fine. So till now what we have learned the set tag from the core, where we have learned about the where and the value attribute. We have the another tag called as what? Parse. And in that parse, which is a part of an XML tag, so we have two attribute there also, that is XML and where. In the XML tag, you are going to call the previously defined variable which is holding some value. So previously defined variable means what? The vegetables, and it is holding some value. So that values means what? The three vegetable name along with its price. So we are calling into this expression. Okay, and then we have a where attribute which is consisting of the another variable, which we are creating the another variable called as what? Output. Okay, now what we are doing, we are having a condition called as if, and we have an attribute called as select. Now what we are going to do, what we are going to check, we'll start with the expression. Okay, we are saying the variable which we have created just now, the output. Okay, it is going to have over here, and it is going to check the predefined variables, defined in your set tag, that is what? Vegetables. And from the vegetables, you have to go to the vegetable tag what we have created separately for the three vegetables with three prices. And from that, you have to check the price, whether the price is less than 100 or not. Okay, so if the vegetable prices are less than 100, we are going to print what? Vegetable prices are very low. Fine. I hope you have understood this. We have an if condition. What if condition is saying that it consists of one attribute, that is what? Select attribute, which is responsible to have the condition written statement over here, what we have written over here. It is going to allow us to write that condition over here. Okay, and what we are saying within expression language, we are saying whatever the output variable is going to hold the value which is going to come from the variable called as vegetables. So we'll start with that variable. We'll have the vegetables tag what we have created, and out of that vegetables tag, we are going to find the vegetable tag, and from that we are going to find the prices. If the prices are less than 100, we can conclude that vegetables are prices are very low, and this can be your output. Fine. If the condition will be vice versa, then we can have the another statement to be printed, which we have to write it. Okay, so what we can do, students, now I'll just stop sharing this. Okay, we'll continue in the next lecture. If you have any doubt, you can ask me. Okay, so the next topic is what? JSTL SQL tags. This is the last topic of this chapter. We have completed the rest four tags. That was your core tag, function tag, formatting tag, XML tag. Okay, so this chapter was all about talking your JSTL, that is your JSP standard tag libraries. Fine. So you have some ready-made tags available which you can use, and out of that we have learned five main tags. Okay, and from that main tags also we had many sub tags with their attributes. We have seen number of examples. Okay, it is more than enough and sufficient if you learn whatever we have learned in the lecture, whatever we have seen in these slides. Okay, and you can write the exact examples in your answer paper also. It is like going to be very much helpful, and it is going to give you good marks. Fine. Now we'll come to the last type of tag, that is your JSTL SQL tag. As the term says SQL, so we know that why it is being used. It is going to work with the database. Okay, so the JSP is having also the tags, the standard tags, which will have the direct database connectivity by making use of any type of database. Okay, so here you can have the URL for the SQL tag, that is also going to be similar the way you had it, that is sun.com JSP. Okay, so you have an URL, that is java.sun.com JSP JSTL /SQL. So you had core in this last, which will identify as a core tag. You had a functions, you had fmt, which will indicate that it is a formatting tag. Then we had xml. Now we are having what? SQL. What is a prefix for the SQL? It is saying that is your SQL. Okay, it is going to allow us to have the number of tags which can interact directly with the relational databases. Any type of databases which are relational databases, can be a SQL server, it can be a MySQL, it can be Oracle. Okay, what is the syntax of your JSTL SQL tag? That is going to start with the @ sign, which will indicate that it is a directive. Which type of directive we are using? That is taglib. We have two attribute, that is URL and prefix. So we are going to pass the defined URL for the SQL tag, like we have written it over here. It will indicate with this when we are going to write SQL at the end. We are going to write the prefix also, that is what the prefix name as SQL. Now you have number of tags available in SQL. Okay, you have query, you have update, you have param, you have transaction, you have set data source, which will help you to create a database, or you can pass the database credentials. You can make your JSP understand that which database and with what credentials you are going to connect to your database. Okay, so we'll see an example, you'll understand it more better way. So the very first example for what? Set data source. The very first type of tag, that is what? SQL colon set data source. Fine. So again, we are going to make use of the core tag, and then we are going to have the SQL tag. Okay, so we have written both these statements over here. One prefix is C, that stands for core, and then the next prefix is SQL, that is for the SQL tag. Now, completely your choice writing these titles and all those things. We'll just come back, we'll just go to the main part of this program, where we are going to show the actual implementation of set data source. So we started with the prefix, that is what? SQL colon, which tag we are going to use from the SQL tag, that is set data source. Okay, we have an attribute called as where, we have an attribute called as driver, we have an attribute called as URL, user, password. Okay, so many attributes we have, because we need all these attributes, because we are going to make our JSP understand that which database first of all we are going to use, and then what is the credential for making to use that database. Okay, so when we learn the database connectivity in our servlet, so that time also I told you that there is a specific, you can say, a driver path is available. You need to make your program, maybe it is servlet or maybe it is JSP, that which database you are using first of all, and what is the driver path of that database. The driver of every database, the JDBC driver of every database is defined. Okay, and that you have to make use of whenever you're going to have the database connectivity. So what is the first attribute you have? Where, that is the name of the variable which I'm giving, that is what? DB, which is going to hold so many values which I'm going to pass after this. Okay, next attribute is what? Your driver. So you have to mention the driver path of the database which you are going to use. So here I've decided that I'm going to use MySQL as a database. So what is the driver path for the MySQL? That is com.mysql.jdbc.driver. Students, we have learned this already in our servlets when we have done the database connectivity steps. Okay, and I have shown you the other database also, like we have done some a few programs for the Oracle also, where I've shown you what is the driver path for the Oracle also. Fine. Next attribute is what? URL. So you need to give this URL also. Even for every database, we have the specific URL, which is going to start with JDBC colon. So for MySQL, the defined URL is what? JDBC colon MySQL. You have to give the host name. Okay, so what is the host name we have written? Local host. And you can give the port number also. You have to write the database what you have created. So this test is a database name what we have created in your MySQL command line. Okay, so if I'm writing test over here, that means what I'm saying, I'm going to use a JDBC driver path. I'm going to use the MySQL database with a host name called as localhost, and I want to connect to the database, that is what? Test. Okay, and this database should be existing in your like you should be create you would have created in your MySQL command previously, and then we are calling that database which we want to use it. Fine. And that condition, so if you have not created, first you have to go and you have to create in your MySQL command line, and then only you can come here and you can say that I want to connect to the test database. Okay, and now to this test database, I would have set the username and the password. I have told you, if you are not making any changes while installing the database, so by default the username is going to be what? Root. Okay, and password you can give. If you're not giving the password, you have to keep this as blank. Fine. What password we have assigned? 1234. So this set data source is basically is going to help you to have the first step of connectivity. That means it is going to have the variable which is going to hold the value such as the driver path, the URL of the database, that means which is going to consist of the host name, port number, the database name, and then you're going to have the user and password, which is the username and the password you have given to the specific database. Okay. Now the next one, I think this is the last example of this chapter, that is SQL colon query. Okay, so what we are going to do is we're going to create a database, and we assume that we have created a database called as test. So whenever we create a database, what is the syntax? Create database name. Okay, and once we have created, and if I want to use that database, or if at all, like I have 10 number of databases and I just wanted to use any of the database which I have created. So what is the syntax of just switching into that specific database? The use database name. Okay, so whenever you're going to use this statement saying that use the database name is what? Test. So I am interested to use right now which database which I have created already, as assuming that is what? Test. Okay, so you're going to write as what? Use test. Fine. Then you are going to create a table inside this database, that is what? Students. And we have number of fields into that. That means you can say the number of columns you are going to create. One is your ID, one is going to be your first name, last name, and then is going to be age. So we have given some constraints also saying that not null in your ID and age. That means you are not allowed to have any null value in your ID and age. Fine. So this is how you're going to create a database. Assuming that we have created already, we are going to switch to that database in which we want to work. Then we are going to create a table in that database, and we'll create a columns where I am expecting that the data is going to come. Now once we have done this, we have created a table like this, we have changed our database. Okay, and if you can see, this is your command line of your MySQL. You can just go and type, or you can create your database and the table. What you can do next, you can just give the you can have an insert statement. You can insert the values in the table called as students, what you have just created. So you can have an insert statement. I hope everybody know what is an insert statement. You can have insert into table name value. So whatever table you are going to have with the specific fields, accordingly you have to put the values. So first value is going to be considered as what? ID. This is your first name, this is your last name, and this is going to be your uh, age. Fine. So we have inserted 4 values in the table. Now once it is done, you can see over here all the values are inserted successfully, okay, with no errors. And then we are going to have the another steps. Now what we are going to write, so we have created database, we have just switched to the database where we want to work, and then we have created a table, we have created columns, we have inserted the values also into the columns. Okay, so we are ready with the database part. Now we are going to come to our JSP. Okay, so where I'm going to have my database connectivity to that database what I have created just now. Now what we are going to do here, first of all, you have to understand that we are going to use a core tag, and we are also going to use the SQL tag, that is your inside your directive called as taglib directive. What we are learning till now in this chapter that we have written. Okay, what is the next two statement? Like above two statements means, if you remember, we have a directive called as page directive. Also we have an include directive, and we have a taglib directive. If you remember, we had a 3 type of directive: page, include, and taglib directive. So in this chapter, in every program we had made use of the taglib directive. We will require a page directive because it is having its one you can say attribute, that is your import attribute, which is going to help to import the servlet packages or a Java packages in the JSP. Okay, that we have learned already when we were learning that particular chapter where we had a page directive concept. Okay, and in that we have an option to have an import attribute, which is going to help me to import n number of packages which I want from the Java, from the servlets. Fine. So what I'm doing, what I want is basically which packages: io.star, I want util.star, I want sql.star, I will require javax.servlet.http.star and javax.servlet.star. The rest two we have learned enough in this chapter, that is a tag lib directive, how you're going to have the URI and prefix as an attribute, passing the URL of the specific tag that can be a core tag and SQL tag, and we'll have a prefixes. Fine. Now, the very first thing, whenever you're going to have the database connectivity, what we have done in our servlet also, we have written some connectivity steps where we had first mentioned the driver path, we have mentioned then the URL, then we have given the credentials of the database to which I want to connect to. Okay, and in the even next previous example, what we have seen, that is what SQL set data source. So whenever you're going to have the database connectivity using your SQL tag in JSP, you're going to start with what? Set data source. Fine. So you have a driver path of the MySQL, assuming that we are going to use MySQL as a database. Then we'll have a URL where I'm going to mention that I'm going to use the JDBC driver, and then the MySQL database, the host name is localhost, and the database to which I want to connect to is test. Okay. And then you'll have a username and password for the database. Okay. Now, the next one, which we are learning right now in this example, that is what? SQL colon query. Okay. So you'll having an attribute. You'll have an attribute, that is what? Query tag. You'll have an attribute called as data source. Okay. Now, from where you're going to, so as I told you, we have a variable, that is db, what I have defined in this set data source, and I told you that this variable is now going to hold all those values what we are defining it over here, and that variable is been called. So automatically whatever we are defining over here is been actually getting, holded by this particular variable, and we can call this variable. So basically we are calling all those things what we have declared over here. Fine. So we have an attribute called as data source in the SQL colon query tag, where I'm having an expression language, where I've started with the dollar sign, which is an actually, indicating that it's an expression language. And what I'm calling the variable what I've created above. So that is what DB. So this DB is holding so many values. Okay, the driver path, URL, username, and the password. And for this, I am also creating another variable called as what? RS. Fine. So I have a query tag where I have an attribute called as data source, and where, so in data source, I am calling the previous variable what I have created and having some values. So I've called it in expression language, and I have created a new variable called as what? RS. Fine. And I have just fired a query called as select star from students. Fine. What you are going to have the next one. So what I want in the web page, okay, I want to have all those data what I have inserted in my database. Okay, so how many fields we had, how many columns we had? 4 columns. Okay, and how many values we have given? 4 values. So what I want in my web page, it should be printed in the table format. Okay, I'll just show you the output first, and then we'll come, this is the last part of the program. So if you can see over here, I have this table. So I have 4 columns what I have created in the database. I have inserted the values as you have seen in the insert statements. And what we have done, we have just created a database, we have inserted the values, and we have came to the JSP page. And in the JSP page, we try to have many import statements like page directive and include directive. Fine. And then we are going to have like we had all again used that set the data source tag, where I have created a variable and passed all those important values like your driver path, URL, username, password. Then we had made use of the query tag. Okay, and in that query tag we are allowed to fire any query, like I want to display, so I will fire the select statement. Okay, and in what form I want the data to be displayed in my web page, in the form of a table. So I have to design a table. Okay, so for that need you have a table tag in your HTML. Okay, so you can see border we have just defined it to, that means what you can see over here, the double line is going to be like this. Width you have written 100%. Then we are going to have a table row where I'm going to have the values like student ID, first name, last name, and age. Fine. Now we are going to use the for each, you can say the tag which was there inside your core tag. How we can identify that this for each tag is coming from core? Because it is prefixed with C. Okay, as I told you, even in Java, core Java, the for each loop, what we have used, why we have made use that for each loop, because if I want to work with an array and I want to read the value of an array in a sequential manner, and I want my data to be printed from the array after reading the value from the array, I can even give the condition, if certain condition is going to meet, don't read the whole value, you can break at some point when the condition is going to meet. But for reading the value sequentially from the array, we made use of the for each loop. Similarly here, if I just wanted to read the data from the table, okay, what I have created in my database, so I can do that same by making use of for each. Okay, so for each tag which comes from your core tag, that is your C, which is prefixed with C, will have a attribute that is what, var, and this is something called as variable name, what we have created just now. That is, the table is a variable name because we have made use of the var attribute. Now the next attribute is what, your items. Okay, so where you're going to have an expression in your expression language, how it is going to be identified, that it is going to start with your dollar sign. Okay, now if you remember this variable what I have created in the previous slide, I'll just go back and show it to you. So here what we have done, we have just called the variable called as db, which is holding all the information, and I've just called it over here. And I'm saying that I have created a variable called as rs in the sql colon query tag, where I'm considering that this whole data now is being passed to the rs. Okay, now when I'm coming here for each loop, so what I'm saying, please read the value which is been hold in the variable called as rs. Okay, and you have to do it row wise. Fine, so that's why we have written rs dot rows. Fine, so in for each, which is coming from the core, I am having a variable called as table. Now why I am having this variable again, the table, because whatever I'm going to read it from here, okay, you have an attribute called as items that is responsible to read one by one all the values from your rows. Okay, so how it is going to happen, you are going to fetch that row values with the help of an variable what you have created, and that value is holding the values of the database columns. Okay, so similarly the rs is going to be like we are going to use with a dot operator, we are going to say read it row wise, and whenever it is going to read it row wise with the help of this attribute, because this attribute is defined for that thing. Okay, this attribute is going to read the data row wise. When it is going to read the data, it's going to be placed inside your table variable. Fine, now what we want to have, we want to print the value. Okay, so how we are going to print the value, because we have an out tag inside your core tag, so we are going to print the value. We'll have an attribute that is what, value, what we have learned already, we had a var and value as an attribute, so we'll make use of the value attribute. Now what is going to be placed, the value which is going to come from the table, and the value of id, the table, the value from the table, that is your first name and the last name and the age. So id, first name, last name and age is going to be printed from your table, and now this table is nothing but the variable which is declared over here, and this table variable is holding the value of id, first name, last name, age in the form of row wise, what we have written over here, and it is coming here in the row wise form when I'm going to call the variable called as rs, and that variable is holding the value from the database, and the database I have created like over here, whichever database I'm trying to find, so I have written in the variable form, I have kept it in the variable called as db. So I hope you have understood the flow. We have a db variable is going to hold some value, is going to be passed to the next variable called as rs, that is inside your sql query. Once it is fetched from there to the rs, and then we'll come here where we want to display something into the web page, so we want to display it in the table form. So in the table form, what we are going to do, we are going to make use of core tag, that is for each tag, which is going to read the data one by one from the table, and that is going to happen when I'm going to have an attribute called as items, which is responsible to read the data row wise, and that is going to be done when I'm going to do with the help of an object called as rs, which was the second object I have created, second variable I have created. Once it is read, it is going to be placed into a third variable called as what, table. Lastly, what is the task is remaining, we have designed the table, we have called the values from the database, we have read the values row wise, now we are ready to print that values. Okay, so we are going to make use of out tag, and there you are going to use the variable name what you have declared, the third variable, that is table, and you're going to print id, first name, last name and age. Fine. So there we end. So if you can see the output, this is your output is going to be printed in your web page. Fine. So here we end this chapter. I hope you have understood. Okay, it is 10:30 now, and we have a small quiz for the last chapter, what we have learned, the fourth chapter. I'll just stop sharing this. If you have any questions, students, you can ask me.